Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be working on building a more robust plank, getting into one of the versions of core work that I consider on one level the most simple type of core flow that we can get into, but yet being simple does not make it not complex and not challenging. So hopefully I'll get into teaching it in a way today that is a nice introduction to getting started with it. So let's get started. We're going to start on our back with our crocodile breath, making our big C shapes of our hands, placing hands below the rib cage. I don't want to be on a rib, and above the hip bone. So I don't want to be on the bony parts of the hip or the rib. I want to be in that nice meaty space of the abdominal wall right in the middle. Index fingers are pressing into the abdominals. Side palm is pressing into the side body, and thumbs are pressing into the low back, kind of cinching. We're going to take a nice inhale in through our nose as we feel that expansion of the abdominal walls pushing out and away into our hands, like we're blowing up a balloon. On the exhale, feel as the navel draw all the way into the spine. Next inhale, getting that nice expansion, expanding out. Front into the belly, out through the side and into the low back space. With each exhale, let your hands squeeze in a little tighter so that you have more resistance for your exhale to press out against. As you're breathing in and out, start to notice a slight rock in your pelvis. As you inhale, the pelvis kind of tilts forward, like it's moving up towards the ceiling. As you exhale, drawing your navel into spine, the pelvis kind of scoops, like the tailbone is rolling up towards the ceiling. Allow that movement to take place. With each inhale, allow the pelvis to start to move a little bit more forward. On the exhale, feel the pelvis start to scoop a little bit more. Notice how that exhale breath, the belly button presses down into the spine and presses the spine into the floor. Feeling this rocking motion of the pelvis is going to be a big part of what I want to really key in on in our awareness of our body through this session in order to help build up our plank. That pelvic mobility, how that pelvis moves anterior to posterior, is going to be important when it comes to developing that core control for a good solid plank. All right. We're going to slowly move into our shin box position, making a nice box with our shins. I'm starting in my left side shin box. My left knee is forward. My left palm is down to the floor, getting a nice grounding through that palm, externally spiraling that elbow out and away so that you feel the chest open up. Notice the shoulder blade pack down and back. We're going to focus on our back hip, allowing that hip to drop down towards the floor. It does not have to touch. If it touches, great. If it doesn't touch, that's okay. And before we get any further, I want to bring in our crocodile breath again. So our free hand can slightly palpate on the side body where we were making our C shape, and I want that to be on the side of the body that the hand is on the floor. We're going to inhale and specifically breathe into that side body space. On the inhale, expanding out. Exhale, drawing the navel up and in. Full exhale. Inhale, feel that breath move into that side body space. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. On the next inhale, we're going to continue to let that hip drop to the floor. As we exhale, drawing navel into spine, we're gonna roll the hip over the top, exhaling, drawing the navel in and kind of scooping the tailbone forward so that you feel a light stretch through the front of the hip. Inhale, let the hip drop all the way to the floor. Exhale, scoop. See if you can feel that stretch. We're gonna do 5 of these on this side, and then we're gonna transition across to the other side. I want the movement to be slow with our breath. After 5, we can windshield wiper our knees across, nice and slow. Grounding palm, spiraling that elbow out and away. Feel that chest open and lift. Coming back to our breath, opposite hand, slightly palpating on that outside side body space. Our hip is kind of reaching down to the floor. Again, it does not need to touch, but it's just letting it drop. Bringing in our breath into this side body. Inhale, feel that breath move out and away like you're inflating a balloon. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. Inhale, nice big expansion into that side body. Exhale, notice your spine gets nice and tall on that exhale. On the next inhale, we're continuing to reach the hip down to the floor. As we exhale, drawing navel into spine, we're also rolling that hip over the top and kind of scooping it, seeing if we can feel a little stretch through the front of the hip. Notice if this hip feels like it moves more or less than the other side. Is it tighter, more restricted? Do you have less or more range of motion? My left hip is my more restricted side. This side is a little harder for me to move. I got a lot more tightness and tension, especially as I exhale and scoop. After 5, we're gonna windshield wiper across back to the other side. And we're gonna do 5 more of those. Continuing to breathe into that belly as we drop the hip, exhale, as we lift and scoop. More than likely on the second round of this, the hip moves a little bit more freely, which is why I want to come back to it a second time. After 5, we're not going to transition across. We're going to move into our hip opener. So I'm still focused on the back hip. We're going to lift that back knee up towards the ceiling and bring it right back down. As I lift this knee, I don't want to drop my shoulder back. I'm not reaching back with my shoulder. I'm staying solid on my outside shoulder, grounded through my palm. All I'm doing is opening that hip, squeezing into it, bringing it back down. I want to exhale as we lift and squeeze. Inhale as we bring it back to the floor. Once we do 5, we're going to windshield wiper across to the other side. Ground palm, spiral elbow, open chest. Coming back to our breath, dropping hip, exhale, navel to spine as we roll the hip for 5 reps. Again, second time through, this should feel a little bit freer. My left hip is still tighter in comparison to the right side, but it feels looser than it did the first round. Again, moving slow with our breath. After 5, we're going to come to our hip opener. Again, grounded palm, opening that hip. Exhale as we lift and squeeze. Inhale as we bring it back to the floor. Notice if this hip moves more freely or less freely than the other side. Again, this is my tight hip. It's constantly restricted. This is a lot harder. Usually takes me a few rounds of doing this every day in order to get my hip moving a little bit more freely. And when I don't do it, my hip stays stuck and it tends to make my back hurt, makes my opposite knee hurt. So I have to work on this constantly every day, largely because of my injury history. We're going to then windshield wiper back across. And now we're going to get into our folds. With folds, we're going to use this move through the shin. Nice inhale. On our exhale, we're reaching both hands evenly, keeping those hands square. I don't want one hand reaching a little bit further. I want to see how far can I reach both hands evenly on the exhale. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back up. Exhale, we're seeing if we can reach a little further without forcing it. Using that exhale. Inhale, bringing it all the way back up. We're going to do this for 5. Nice slow reps. Again, inhale, fill up that crocodile space. Exhale, draw navel into spine as we reach. See if you can get a little further in that reach with each one. Can you reach out wide, letting the chest get dropped down to the floor? After 5, I'm going to offer you a different transition. So you can still do the windshield wipers if that feels more comfortable or if this transition is too hard. The new transition is our thread through, opening up that back leg, spiraling that leg around, threading it through underneath the other leg, lifting the other leg, spiraling it all the way back around till we get on the shin box on the other side. And then we're going to do the same thing with our reach. Nice inhale, inflating the crocodile. Exhale, reaching both hands evenly. I always want to keep that first reach shallow. I don't want to go far. With each one, I'm slowly exploring a little bit further so that by the 5th one, I'm kind of getting fully into the reach as far as I feel comfortable without forcing it. Again, notice how does it feel on this side. Can you reach as far? Is it harder to keep your fingers even? Does one hand want to go further on one side in a way that it doesn't do on the other side? How does it feel in your hips? On the 5th one, we're going to transition back to the other side. Again, it can be the windshield wiper or it can be the thread through. And now we're going to do the same thing, but we're doing one and we're going to transition back and forth after every rep. So still reaching through that shin, nice exhale as we reach. As you bring it back up, we're going to transition across to the other side. I like the thread through transition because it adds another layer of hip mobility into what we're doing. It also adds a little bit of core work into what we're doing. It's subtle, but subtle is sometimes rather powerful. So these little moves right here can be incredibly beneficial in our bodies, even if they don't feel incredibly challenging. Once you do 2 to 3, up to 5 reps back and forth, starting to feel a little bit more evenness from one side to the other, hopefully. We're going to start to now allow that back leg to slide open a little bit more, making our shin box a little wider. We're still reaching through the shin from this position, bringing it all the way back up. Transition to the other side and open that back leg up the same amount. You may notice a little bit different layers of stretch deeper within the hip based on that position of the back hip. As you're going side to side with each one, see if you can open up that back hip a little bit more. Again, I want to stay even with my reach. Both hands are evenly reaching. That will may restrict how far you're able to go, which is fine. I'm more interested in kind of assessing how my body moves from each position than to force it into a bigger reach but then bypassing what I'm actually feeling in my body. We're going to continue to open that leg up, getting a little bit closer to a pigeon pose. I still have my knee facing out and my foot facing out, so I'm not quite at the end range. Again, I only want to move as far as my body feels comfortable. I don't want to force position, so wherever your body kind of says, this is it, you don't need to take the hip any further if it starts to get uncomfortable, painful, or stressful. If you've got pretty good hip mobility, as we get to the last one, I want to work on, as we reach back, can you turn the knee facing down to the floor? Can you turn the foot facing down to the floor and really reach through those toes back as you reach at the same time through the hands reaching evenly? Can you bring that all the way across to the other side and get into that same position? Again, this is that area, that nice hip mobility with core work. How much can you keep that leg off the ground until you get fully into position? Coming out of it, can you lift, bring that leg all the way around, and do the same thing on the other side. If you need to use your hands for that, if you can't go all the way back, again, that's okay. All right, we're now going to come into our quadruped, getting on the hands and knees, spreading fingers nice and wide, extending the elbows fully without locking. We're going to start with foot mobility. So I want to tuck the big toe underneath, turn the heels in towards each other as far as you can, like you're trying to touch them together. I want to keep those heels turned in so that only the big toe is loaded on the floor. From here, we're going to take some nice crocodile breaths. Inhale in through the nose, filling up that crocodile, that balloon breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. On the next inhale, fill up that balloon nice and big. And then on the next exhale, we're going to let our hips sink back towards our heels and load that big toe joint. Inhale, we're going to slowly come off that big toe. With each one, exhale, see if you can feel a little bit more weight of your hips sink down to your heels, which is going to apply a little bit more load into the ball of the foot and into the arch of the foot. With each one, start to notice, how does this feel on the left side compared to the right side? My left big toe feels really stiff right now, a little bit more so than usual. So I'm going to kind of pay attention to this to see if I can get that to loosen up as we go. After 5, when we come up, we're now going to turn the heels out and tuck all the rest of the toes. So we should be on the other 4 toes. The big toe can be touching, but it probably will not be loaded. But see if you can get that pinky toe tucked underneath so that it's on the floor, so that when we sit our hips back to heels, we get some stretch in that all the way out to the pinky toe. As we inhale, we come forward. Exhale, feel the weight of your hips sink to your heels, and notice, how does this feel on the outside ball of the foot into the outside arch of the foot? How does it feel on the right side compared to the left side? I want my breath cycles to be nice and slow. Really, it's kind of a 3 count or even a 4 count in both directions. Going slow will help us be more sensitive to pain levels in the body. It's also just going to be generally better for purpose of mobility. If we're rushing through stuff, we tend to bypass the neurological part of mobility, which can be a problem. So I want to go slow with breath. This is that area where I want to go slow to be smooth. Once we get good at being smooth, we can then start to go fast. Now we're going to find, let your hips sink back to heels. I don't want to go all the way back. I want to go to where we get a little bit of tension in the arches, in the balls of the feet. And now we're going to do our windshield wipers. So we're going to roll our heels from out to in. So going from pinky toe to the big toe, and then rolling back out to pinky toe. Only keep as much weight in your hips to heels as you can without this being painful. And again, notice the difference of how does this feel on the right foot compared to the left foot. Now that I'm getting to this part of the foot mobility, my left big toe, it still feels a little tight, but it feels a lot looser than it did at the very beginning. And that's an important thing. If that big toe is stiff, it's going to have a pretty significant impact on gait mechanics. So I want to make sure big toe is nice and mobile. We're going to let our ankles go flat to the floor now. We're going to do the same. Sit back on our exhale. Feel the weight of the hips to the heels. Inhale, coming all the way forward. With each one, allow a little bit more weight to heels if you can. If your hips can touch your heels, we can start to let our hands sink back to where we get our weight on our heels. But then we're coming right back forward to our hands, letting our weight shift forward. Notice if it's difficult to get both hips to your heel. Is one hip a little bit off the heel? Is it hard because that knee won't bend all the way? Does it kind of feel stuck within the knee space? Also, I want to feel the front of the ankles. Are you getting a big stretch in the front of the ankles? And even more importantly, is it a bigger stretch on one side and not the other? And the next, as we come back up to palms, we're going to go ahead and ground back through our hands, spread fingers wide, nice grounded palms. Go ahead and tuck the toes. And now we're going to get into our wrists. Nice inhale, filling up that crocodile breath. Exhale. We're going to now rock forward so that we're moving that load into the wrists. Inhale, we're rocking back to unload the wrist. Again, I want to go slow with the breath. We're only going to do 5 reps of each of the wrist mobility, but we are going slowly, so it's going to take a little bit of time. Notice the difference in how this feels on the right wrist compared to the left wrist. Next, we'll turn fingers out to the side and we'll get our side-to-side glide. Inhale as we come to the center. Exhale as you move across. Inhale as we come to center, and exhale as you move to the other side. This is also where I want to have that nice push and pull effect at the palms and the shoulder blades. As I'm moving away from my hand, that hand is pushing into the floor, and I want to feel that shoulder blade actively slide off the rib cage. As I'm moving towards that hand, I am pulling that palm to my body, and I want to feel that action at the shoulder blade as it tightens up on the rib cage towards the spine. See if you can feel an active shoulder blade, active palm in both directions. And we're going to turn fingers all the way back towards the knees. Closer the hands are, the less intense this is. The further out, the more intense. I don't want this to be massively intense. Same crocodile breath forward, exhale as we let our hips sink back to heels, feeling that wrist, that stretch in the forearms. Inhale, body comes back forward. Exhale, light shift hips to heels. Again, going nice and slow. After 5 of those, we're going to flip our palms to the back side, allowing the elbows to bend slightly. On our inhale, we're letting the elbows flex, dropping the chest a little bit to the floor. On the exhale, we're pressing lightly into the floor and extending the elbows. The first thing I want to pay attention to are the elbows, is the elbow space. Is there a stretch? If there is, then great. I want to be in that, I want to play with that stretch. Softening the elbows to ease the stretch, and then extending the elbows, pushing lightly in the floor to move into that stretch lightly. I don't want it to be a major stretch. I don't want to go into pain. Slight discomfort is fine. Inhale, exhale, press. If you're able to get full extension of the elbows without any stretch feeling, then we can do a little bit of rocking back hips to heels. Again, I want to move at the speed of breath. Inhale forward, exhale back. We're then going to take the wrists off the floor, roll them out for a second. We're going to come back to wrists in order to get a little bit of pelvic and spine mobility. If the wrists get fatigued, if you need to take a break while we're doing this, that's fine. I don't want you to overload the wrist. Coming back to grounding, palms, spread fingers. I want to keep the toes tucked. We're now going to work on elbow spirals. So I want to let the elbow pits turn and face as far forward as possible. And then internally spiral, turning as far back as possible. As we're feeling those elbows spiral forward and spiral back, don't allow the hands to slide around on the floor. Keep the hands grounded. Don't let them move. That elbow pit is spinning over a fixed hand. We're seeing how far can you spiral the long arm bones, humerus all the way down into the forearm. How far can you get that to spiral out and in? How far does it go in both directions? As we're doing this, start to notice the shoulder blades. As we spiral elbow pits in, the shoulders are going to want to round up over the top of the rib cage a little bit, getting us a little rounded in our upper back. As we spiral the elbow pits forward, shoulder blades want to move towards the hips. It wants to pack down on the rib cage, and it should feel like it's kind of really hugging the rib cage tightly. Exhale, feel it lift, and you can even start to press into the floor so that you get some spread in between the shoulder blades and you feel some light stretch between the shoulder blades and the spine. As you spiral elbows forward, feel the shoulder blades pack down and back. Notice the chest kind of naturally opens up and drops to the floor. Again, we'll go ahead and take a little rest on the wrist, get them a little flow, make sure that we're not overloading them. We're going to come back to our quadruped, spread hands, grounded palms, keep those back toes tucked. And we're going to come back and sink in our breath again. So we're getting that nice inhale, filling up the abdominals with like a balloon. On the exhale, drawing navel into spine. Inhale, filling up that crocodile breath or balloon. And just like we did at the very beginning with the crocodile breath, laying on our back, I want to start to feel that natural movement of the pelvis. As we inhale, pelvis is tilting forward, belly's kind of opening up towards the floor. As we exhale, our drawing in the navel to the spine brings in this little bit of a scoop. We're going to accentuate that. On your inhale, as your belly opens up, allow the pelvis to continue to tilt. Fill up that abdominal belly as much as you can without getting any pinch in your low back. And on your exhale, draw that navel up like you're trying to reach the floor with your belly button. As you scoop actively, feel that get into a little bit of low back stretch. I want to really work the maximum exhale to maximum inhale as much as possible without going into pinch or discomfort. So on that inhale, really opening up that belly big towards the floor. On the exhale, really actively scoop. Feel that stretch into the low back. Now I want to combine our elbow spirals with what we're doing with our pelvis, or with that breath. So as you inhale, we're going to spiral the elbow pits out, letting the chest drop, head comes up, looking forward. As we exhale, drawing navel to spine, scooping the pelvis, we're spiraling the elbows in as we press to the floor, getting nice and big into our cat position. And then inhaling, spiraling the elbows forward, head comes up. I want to continue to work maximum range of breath. So as we get up, we're still exhaling as much, scooping as much as we can without pinch or pain. And as we're inhaling, spiraling forward, head comes up, filling up that abdominal wall as big as you can on the inhale. Again, that pelvic mobility is going to come in real big once we start building into the plank. I'm going to take a quick pause to blow my nose real quick. All right, now we're going to come into our inverted or reverse sit. Knees are bent, hands are coming down to the waist or slightly behind the waist. Fingers can be forward, out to the side, or back, whatever is comfortable. My preference tends to be out to the side. Grounding through the palms. And we're going to do this, we're going to come back with our same elbow spirals that we did in the quadruped. So I'm paying attention to the elbow pits. How far out and away can you spiral the elbows without sliding the hands around on the floor? How far in can you turn your elbow pits without sliding the hands? I want to exhale as we spiral the elbow pits inward. I want to inhale as we spiral the elbow pits out. And just like with doing this in the quadruped, we're going to notice how that spiral of the elbows moves the shoulders. So as we spiral inward, notice the shoulder blades want to round up over the ribs, moving up towards the ears. We can allow that movement to happen. As we externally spiral, notice how the shoulder blades want to move down the rib cage, packing down, reaching to the floor, lifting up our chest and opening the chest at the same time. We're going to move into those positions as much as we can without pain or pinch. So spiraling in, see if you can feel some stretch in between the shoulder blades and the spine on your exhale. On your inhale, spiral those elbow pits, continue to spiral and reach palms down to see if you can lift the sternum up, and can you feel some stretch through the chest? And then next, I want to start to bring in our pelvis. As we're exhaling, spiraling the elbows in, drawing navel into spine, our pelvis should naturally be scooping. We're going to add to it and scoop even more. I want to feel that turn into a little bit of stretch in the low back. We're still trying to find this stretch in the upper back between the shoulders. We're basically doing a cat in the inverted position. As we inhale, we're externally spiraling, pressing down, pelvis is tilting forward. We're filling up that crocodile breath, getting nice and tall. I really want to reach down as we spiral out. See if you can really feel that chest opening up towards the ceiling on the inhale. Exhale, drawing navel all the way in. On the next inhale, as we get nice and tall, open up chest, pressing down to the floor, I want to hold that position. And from here, we can go ahead and do it, cross our legs if that's more comfortable. But I want to stay downwardly engaged, open and spiraled out. I want to feel this, my shoulder blades pressing down into the floor, getting nice and tall in the spine. We're going to do some neck mobility. We're going to start by checking our blind spots. Looking over the right shoulder. Excuse me. And then looking over our left shoulder. I want to go slow with our breath. So we're inhaling as our eyes come forward. We're exhaling as we look over our shoulder. With each one, see if you can reach your chin a little bit further over the edge of your shoulder. And really focus on the chin, because I don't want to turn from the forehead. I don't want the head to tilt as we turn. I want to keep that chin as the part that I am trying to reach over the shoulder. That should help keep your head tall, your spine tall, and should also get into a little bit deeper musculature down in the neck. I'm going to bring head back to center, and now we're going to get into our tilt with lift. So as I drop one ear down towards the shoulder, I'm actively lifting that opposite ear like I'm trying to touch the ceiling with it. Elbows are continuing to spiral out, pressing down, shoulders are packed. Inhale as we come to center, exhale as we tilt and lift. I find this particular one is a good one to incorporate a little bit of jaw mobility. So as you tilt and lift, opening up your jaw, feel a little to stretch your jaw. Man, my allergies got kicked up. My apologies. Notice if opening your jaw on one side feels different than when you open the jaw on the other side. The right side of my neck is a little tight right now. As I open up, I feel a relationship into the jaw. The jaw feels tight as well. Laying on our back, we're going to bring arms straight out to the side. Palms are up. This is where I want to imagine that we're laying in a bed of sand and we're grounding all the way across the upper back, upper arms, elbows, forearms, and palms. Everything is pressing down evenly like we're trying to make an imprint in the sand with our body. And I don't want to smear that imprint. So I want to get really good and fixed with the upper body. And then we're going to lift our feet, pulling our knees into the chest lightly. We're going to come back to our crocodile breath before we do anything else. Nice inhale, filling up that crocodile, that balloon breath. Exhale, navel to spine. On the next inhale, fill up that crocodile breath. On the exhale, we're going to let our hips roll over to the side. But don't let your shoulders, don't lose your imprint on that opposite side arm. Inhale, bring the hips back to center. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as we roll to the other side. Go slow and small to start with. I don't want to go to the end range right off the bat. I want to stay easy, and then with each one, work a little deeper to make sure that it's not painful, or there's not some catches, or there's not some adjustments, some little pops that might want to happen first before I go deep into the movement. Ooh, that was a nice little pop. Try to connect that breath smoothly into each phase of the movement. And then with each one, we're seeing if we can go a little bit lower without pain and without losing our connection to the floor through our upper body. This is both a mobility and core work at the same time, especially if I'm able to really control the upper torso, keep really well grounded. I don't want that hip getting lifted up or the shoulder getting lifted up as we go. If that shoulder or the arm is coming off the floor, then you're kind of missing out on some of the core and mobility work that can be beneficial from this movement. So I really want to work on being solidly engaged with the floor and less concerned with how far the hips go. The hips will get better as you develop the core strength around grounding through the shoulders. We're going to go ahead and let both feet come flat to the floor. We're going to come back into our crocodile breath, and we're going to bring this into our pelvic tilts again. So breathing in, filling up that balloon. On the inhale, exhale, drawing navel into spine. As we inhale and you fill that balloon, notice how the pelvis naturally wants to rock forward, lifting the low back off the floor. We're going to accentuate this. So as you breathe in, allow that movement to move forward into the belly. Get as big of a sway in your back without going to pinch or pain. On the exhale, we're drawing navel into spine as we scoop. I want to kind of imagine that your belly button is trying to push your vertebrae down and flatten it out against the floor without lifting up the sacrum. I want to make sure for right now that we're not pushing through our feet. All this work is happening through lift of the belly. Exhale, belly button is drawing down and reaching to the floor, flattening out the spine. I don't want to press through the feet just yet. We're going to press through the feet in just a second, but I don't want to press to where we lift the sacrum off the floor. And I got to take a quick pause in order to pay my lawn guy. Just a second. Hi.
Dice, habló, es que nadie want filter for the clean in the back, the leads, pero no habló.
The blower's not working?
No.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. Can I go ahead and give you money?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry about that. Bad timing. All right, so we're in our belly, breathing into the belly, feeling that belly lift. Exhale, drawing navel in, feeling that scoop. And now I want to get into our feet, grounding into the feet. As we exhale, we're going to start to peel. I want to peel the sacrum off the floor and see if we can feel each vertebrae move one at a time, lifting as we continue to scoop from the pelvis with our exhale until we get into the top of our hip bridge, feeling a little bit of stretch at the front of the hips. And then as we inhale, we're going to see if we can feel each vertebrae one at a time come back down to the floor till we get to our sacrum. Then we're fully breathing into that expanded breath, lifting the spine off the floor. Exhale first, presses the spine down, and then scoop as we peel each vertebrae off one at a time. Inhale down, feel that nice lift. As we have this nice breath cycle moving from hips to the floor into our hip bridge, I want to come up into our shoulders and kind of, arms are going to just reach up to the ceiling. Let your shoulders reach off the floor, and then we're going to feel them spread and ground down to the floor. I want to get back to like making a nice imprint of our upper back, and I want to maintain that solid engagement of the upper back, pressing down into the floor as we scoop into our bridge. And as we inhale, hips back to the floor, shoulder blades stay engaged the whole time. With each one, seeing if we can scoop that tailbone up a little bit more at the top. On the next exhale, once we get to the top, we're going to stay at the top. So exhale fully into our bridge. And now we're going to bring I still want to be solid engaged through the shoulders. Shoulders are still actively pressing down. Now we're bringing back our breath and allowing the pelvis to move and tilt. So we're going to inhale into the belly, allow the pelvis to tilt forward. As we exhale, navel to spine, we're finding that same scoop, but I want to maintain the level of our bridge. Don't let the hips drop and sag. Keep pressing down into the floor. Inhale into the belly, pelvis tilts. Exhale, navel comes in, pelvis scoops. With each exhale, you should start to notice your glutes start to fire up a little bit more and a little bit more. Keep scooping, and with that scoop, we're also pressing up just a little bit more. After about 5 to 10, we're going to bring the hips all the way back down to the floor. And we're now going to, get into our core work. This is the work to build our bridge, but we're going to start on our back. Legs are going to go straight. I want the toes facing the ceiling. I don't want them turning out to the side. So keep the knees and the feet facing up. And again, I want to be nice and spread through the upper back and shoulders. What we're going to do is we're going to press through our heels and see if we can lift our butts off the floor. If you can, we're going to lift and see if we can get to 2, 3, 4, up to 5 nice breaths, holding that bridge off the floor, and then we'll rest the hips back down. If you can only do one breath, if you can only hold it for a second before you have to drop it back down, that's fine. I want to kind of go with where you're at. I don't want to force this. So it can be a nice inhale, exhale, lift, inhale, drop, exhale, lift, inhale, drop. I will call that like the first progression. If you're able to exhale, lift, and then breathe, maintaining our position off the floor, and then allow the hips to drop. We're not going to do a lot of reps of this because this is kind of building into some progressions to get into the flow action of this movement, but this is one of the positions that we're going to be moving into. We're going to do another cycle of that. Again, it can either be breath, exhale, lift, inhale, drop, or exhale, lift, and hold for a number of breaths all the way in, all the way out. So kind of working at the level that you feel comfortable with. Nice exhale, lift. Continue to get nice full breaths into that crocodile breath. And full exhale all the way out. We'll go ahead and drop hips down to the floor. Now we're going to move spin all the way to our belly. From our belly, we're going to start with arms straight out to the side and palms down. From here, we're going to spiral our palms up towards the ceiling as we draw our elbows into our side. I want to feel the bony prominence on the inside of the elbow come in and touch the side of the rib. I don't want to lift the chest and place my body on top of my forearms. Chest is still on the floor, but we're bringing the elbows in so that we got back side of the forearms and back of the palm on the floor. From here, we're going to go ahead and tuck the toes, and I want to come back and find our breath again. Really find our breath with pelvic mobility, with pelvic tilts. So we're going to inhale, filling up our crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. As you inhale, notice the pelvis tilt forward. We're going to get a little sway in our low back. As you exhale, drawing navel into spine, scoop the pelvis. Inhale, feel that sway. Exhale, scoop. From this position, as you exhale, the more you scoop, you should start to notice your glutes get a little bit tight. They're going to contract a little bit. Now we're going to get into our elbow push-up. Again, this is working on getting up into a plank. So first progression is lifting feet up towards the ceiling. Inhale, allow the pelvis to tilt to the floor. As you exhale and scoop, drawing the navel in, scooping the pelvis, we're going to spiral the palms and press at the same time. So I should be scooping the pelvis at the top. I want to have a little bit of rounded low back and upper back. On the inhale, we're spiraling the palms up as we pull our elbows to our side. Inhale, let the belly open up, hips sway, rotate forward. Exhale, scoop as we press. Inhale as we pull our elbows into our side. If this is fairly easy and you're ready for our next progression, we're going to bring toes down to the floor. We're going to tuck the big toe. Actively lift the back of the knees up to the ceiling. Everything else is the same. Inhale, fill up the belly, pelvis tilts to the floor. Exhale, scoop as you press. Again, I want to be scooped in the pelvis and pressed through the shoulders so we're a little bit rounded as we get to the top. Inhale as you pull elbows into your side. Then we'll bring chest back down to the floor. I want to keep the hands in the same position, but we're gonna roll over onto one side. My arm is still in the same position. That elbow is in the same spot on the side of my rib, but I'm rolling over onto the side of the shoulder, and I got the outside of that arm on the floor. Hips are touching. I want to bring my top foot forward. My bottom foot is back. And I want to feel the side edges of my foot. And from here, all I'm doing is lightly lifting the hips off the floor. I'm not pressing through the elbow. All my weight can be on my shoulder. I'm seeing if we can do a small, shallow hip bridge from this position, side bridge. So this can be similar to what we did on our back. Inhale, fill up the belly in our crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. Lift the hips. Inhale, drop the hips, filling up that belly. Exhale, scoop, drawing the navel in as we lift. If you can hold this, then as we lift, we can take several breaths while we're holding this position. And then we can drop the hips. We're going to roll onto our shoulder and then roll to the other side. So again, top leg is forward, bottom leg is back. Finding that crocodile breath, filling up the belly. On the inhale, exhale, navel comes to spine, lifting the hip. Inhale, dropping the hip. Exhale, lift. Can you get that hip, that side of your body off the floor so that all that's touching arm and shoulder and the feet? If you can hold the hips off the floor for several breaths, we're still breathing into that crocodile breath, exhaling, drawing navel into spine. And then we're going to move back to the other side. We're going to do the same thing. This time, I want to see if we can hold it. So if your progression is that you need to just breath, lift, exhale, drop, then I want you to repeat the same thing. If you're able to hold for 2 or 3 breaths, now we're going to add a thread through of our leg. So I'm going to go through that progression. So exhale, lift the hip. We got to keep the hip lifted. And we're going to thread the bottom leg forward, through, and backwards, while maintaining, keeping our hips off the floor. Inhale, we're filling up that crocodile breath. Exhale, navel to spine. After 3 to 5 thread throughs, we're going to move to the other side and do the same thing. Continue with your nice breath, nice and slow. We don't need to be rushed. Drop the hips. And now we're going to very quickly see if we can go through a progression of going through all of those movements and tying them together. We're going to start on belly. Palms are out, spiraling, palms up, elbow pits in, chest is on the floor. Toes are tucked. From here, we're not going to press up into the full plank. We're just simply going to lift hips and body off the floor so that the only thing touching are forearms and toes. From this position, we're going to roll onto that side body, keeping the hips off the floor. I don't want to let the hips touch the floor at all. We're going to thread the bottom leg forward. And then from here, we're rolling onto our back, but we're trying to keep the hips from falling to the floor. Once we're on the back, I want to already have my elbow, side of my elbow in that side body rib, so I can roll onto that shoulder. And then we're going to thread that bottom leg through to the back so that we come back onto our forearms. Obviously, we're going to move quite a bit on our mat. So we should be back on, and now we're going to go back the other direction. So from our elbows, rolling into the side. Again, hips are off the floor. Thread the bottom leg through, rolling onto our back, keeping hips off the floor. Elbows are already finding side body space so that we can roll onto that shoulder. Threading bottom leg through, rolling back to the chest. And so I want to be able to go back and forth. Where you find that it's hard to transition from one position to the next, if it's harder on one side of the body, that's going to be really useful information as far as things that we can work on in order to get better balance in the body. All right, we're going to now come back to our back, make our big C shapes out of our hands, putting them below the rib cage and above the hip bone. Getting nice inhale, filling up that balloon breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. With each exhale, allow those hands to cinch in, and with each inhale, press the wall of the abdominals out further against those hands. See how big can you blow that balloon up on the inhale? How much can you exhale all the way? Then we can allow our arms to relax. And we're going to take a few more breaths, but we're going to allow those breaths up into the ribs, up into the chest, into the neck. Just nice, soft breath, breathing into any tension in the upper body. And with the exhale, just allow that tension to melt off your body onto the floor. And when you're ready, we're going to very slowly get back up.